What's up everyone, welcome to another build episode. Today it's gonna be again a special build. We're gonna be putting together a gravel bike, particularly this beautiful Bossi Grit SS 3D printed / forged titanium bike. And yeah, we're gonna be equipping this with a nice one-piece handlebar that I still had flying around from Derailleur. So it's a handlebar that I already rode on another bike previously, and it is a very robust, not flaxy at all one, so I think that it's gonna work out great for the gravel use case. We're also going to be equipping this bike with these beautiful G45 wheels from No.6 with some nice chunky 45mm tires on here. And to add one more special ingredient, we're also going to be building this bike up with a mechanical group set. It's going to be a 1x setup, 1x also just for the case, because I don't think that for gravel I will need a 2x in the front, but also as this is a fully integrated headset and a fully integrated handlebar, I want to keep routing those wires and hoses through here as simple as possible. So I think routing 3 through here is already going to be a challenge enough. So let's see if it's actually going to work out, because I hope it will, because I have no other group set at the moment. So I would say let's start building. So to get things started, we're going to be routing the brakes through the frame and also through the headset first, so that I can as quickly as possible get those hoses installed in the one-piece handlebar in the cockpit, which I guess might be the most challenging part of this whole build. So let's get going. So first of all, I'm just gonna roughly attach the brakes to the frame. Nothing being tightened, because we'll have to center them later on anyways. So there we go. Then I'm just gonna route the brake hose through the rear chainstay down into the bottom bracket area. That should be hopefully fairly easy. And now I'm just gonna push it up the down tube all the way into the head tube. There we go. So let's just push it all the way through. And you already hear this rattling of the brake hose in the frame, because particularly with metal frames it is quite loud. So now what we want to do is add one of these little foam inserts on top of the brake hose, and that's going to be dampening up the noise quite a bit. So let's cut it to length. So I assume it's going to be in here from the head tube all the way down the down tube. So I'm just going to cut it here. And now we're just pushing it over the brake hose. And now here, no more rattling around. As this is going to be a mechanical shifting setup, I also need to route a shift cable outer housing from the rear of the bike also up the way into the head tube. So let me do this real quick as well. And then also, like with the brake housing, I'm also going to add some of that foam around here, because this also has potential to rattle in there. That was easy. All right, here we go. So same procedure. Let's get that outer foam. Again, gonna cut it to length, roughly like this. All right, second one done. Now I'm gonna route the front brake through the fork. This basically just goes into this little hole. Let me get you closer. Into this little hole up here, and then by pushing it through, it should quite easily and hopefully pop up here, that we can route it easier up through the head tube and then into the handlebar. So let's go. I can see it in there, but it's past the hole, so I need something again to fish it out. This one is hopefully gonna work. So it's going to be a little bit of a push and pull situation, I guess. You can see the end of it. So I'm just going to pull it a little bit towards me. So just for your info, there are some forks out there on the market where I feel that this is kind of molded in that tunnel where you push the brake hose through and then it automatically pops out here. But this is not one of them, and it just makes it a little bit more complicated. I guess what it does, it makes the whole thing a little bit lighter because you're not adding any carbon that's not really needed there, just to guide the thing through and to make installation a little bit easier. But yeah, you have to fish around a little bit. And while we're talking about weight, let's also just quickly have a look at the weight of the frame itself. And I gotta say, I thought that it will be significantly heavier than the road frame. Of course, it is a little bit heavier than the road frame, but I'd say not significantly. And yeah, this is also the weight for the uncut fork, in case you're interested. Of course, that fork is going to be a little bit heavier because it has like all those mounts and screws in here. But still, I think quite a good start weight-wise. There we go. Yeah, I had to just quickly do this on the floor. It was way easier than just trying to float this thing here in the air just to get on camera. So once properly sitting down, putting it against the floor, it was way easier with having two hands free to navigate that brake hose through there. So now I'm just quickly going to briefly attach the brake to the fork. By the way, also the mounts for the brakes are nicely faced, super flush and clean, no paint, no overpaint, no overspray, very nice. So that should make centering the brakes quite an easy job, I would hope. This is one of these ratchety kind of bolts. We have this little plastic ratchet thing, which just needs to go on top of the bolt, and then like this, and then you'll hear it in a second. And then here you also have another hole next to the bolt opening, and this is where this little hook goes in. We just screw it in, tighten it up a little bit. You'll hear the ratchet engage. So we can still move it around later for centering, but now we can start assembling the headset and then start trying to route all those hoses and cables through the handlebars. So let's go. Okay, so first of all, we'll have to grease up everything nicely. So all the contact points with bearings and stuff. By the way, I also read somewhere on some forum that actually using copper paste with titanium, which I thought is supposed to be the grease for titanium mixed with other metals, is actually the worst thing you can do. That you should just use regular grease. So for this build, I'm just going to use regular grease and let's see what happens. But if you have any knowledge on that topic, feel free to drop that down in the comments below. Also why, so that I know for the next build, or maybe if I'll have to take it apart and rebuild it, let me know. Now quick grease up session. All right. Rather add a little bit too much grease than too little, I would say. You can always clean it up later if you feel that you've overdone it. Also, don't forget to grease up points like here where the bearing is going to be sitting on the crown race of the fork. Now I'm going to add the bearing that of course comes with the frame. So now let me guide that fork through. Also, when it comes to organization of those hoses and outer cables, as these both that are already sticking out are going to be for the rear shifter and the rear brake, I want to have it on my right hand side, or from the front on the left hand side, because this is where they're going to go into the handlebars. So just to keep things easy and to have those hoses intersect each other as little as possible. There we go. And I want this one coming out of this side. Now that that's in, I'm just going to use some electronic tape just to fixate the fork. All right, maybe without the cable. There you go. Next thing, I'll add the bearing together with all those top covers that are there to, first of all, route the hoses through here to the front for the integrated headset. Yeah, just in one, because otherwise I'll have to do the same job twice. So let me just do that now. And here as well, it is going to be important that we route those cables already now as well as possible. So these ones go off to the right hand side and this one to the left hand side. All right, so I'll push this all down, compress it a little bit, and then we get to routing the handlebars. All right, so I'm gonna maybe do something stupid slightly, but you see there are those routing supports in here that would help you to route those cables into the openings. I'm gonna take these out because, I mean, if you're building this bike, you might have just bought a second-hand handlebar and you don't have these. So I want to see how difficult this is actually going to be without those supports. I still hope that it's going to be fairly easy. So there are these so-called magnetic routing tools. So, yeah, now the problem is there are two metal mounts for the computer, and these are also metal, so when passing with the cable through here, also the magnet is going to be attracted by that. So maybe pulling out those supports was a little bit of a dumb thing. So I pulled the brake hose out, pulled one of those supports in, and now I'm pushing the brake hose back through again, hoping that I can fish this one out and then use this this little support thingy for the shift outer cable. So let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. So there is a chance that it's gonna work out. Okay, you won't believe it, after 15 minutes off camera, finally managed to get the shift housing through here with this trick of this little transparent support guide. And then we still got to do the brake hose on the other side. So let's see how that's gonna go. All right, what a smooth day so far. Let's see if I'm gonna be able to route this one through without support. This one is hopefully gonna be easier because it only needs to go through here and then up to the right where there is no hose yet. That's looking promising. Yeah, there you go. So, all right. That is done. So now let's just push it through. Now, before attaching the handlebars, I'm gonna put some carbon assembly paste on here. There we go. So there's some ground up carbon particles in here, and that kind of helps that you don't have to torque these screws, those handlebar screws, up to the max and then still have enough friction that your handlebar isn't moving away from your fork. I'm gonna push all those cables in as far as possible. It's looking good. All right. Nice. I mean, after the routing, quite smooth so far. Okay, so now I'm dropping in the expander plug in here. Tighten that up. Now adding the top cap, which is going to compress everything nicely together. All right. And now I should be able to take off that tape without everything falling apart. That is looking good. Nice. Good movement in here. Nothing seems to be blocking anything. So I hope that this is going to properly work out with the manual shifting. Next up, let's install the shifters, starting with this one. So peeling back the rubber hood and just slipping it on here. Let's see if that's open enough. There we go. Then also here on the handlebars, which is quite nice, we have those little indicators. Hope you can see them. Yeah, there we go. Those little indicators, so I'm just using them as orientation. That helps a little bit to put them at the same height without needing any special alignment tools or hacks. So I'm just gonna tighten that up. I'm basically just installing it to intersect with the last line, but not fully tightening it just yet because I still want to align them properly once the bike is on the floor and fully set up, but I also don't want to have them to move around too much, maybe a little bit towards the inside. There we go. The other one. So we put it into the same position, also intersecting with the top first line. There we go. Okay, now it's time to attach the brake hose as well as the shift outer cable, and then we can route the shift cable through and also install the rear derailleur. So we're slowly getting there. So now we're going to be shortening the brake hoses, and for this we need a couple of tools, or actually one tool. This one is from a company called Jaguar. You see there's this little guillotine coming out here, which is going to give you a very nice clean cut, because otherwise I tried it with other tools and then you never get a clean cut where also the center part of the brake hose remains intact. And then also we'll have to push a metal pin, this one particularly, we'll have to push that into the hose, and to do this we also need another tool, which is, this one's also from Jaguar, but I'm sure there are multiple companies that do that. And with this one you basically grab the hose in here and then push the pin in. Let's do it together. So when I'm cutting brake cables, before I do it, I actually like to push a little bit of that brake hose into the handlebar, like if this is possible. And here it is possible to have like maybe, I don't know, 2 centimeters of brake hose, because otherwise when you do it when you have it stretched out and then you cut it exactly to length and then you start moving your handlebar, pretty much stretching the brake hose because it goes through the whole frame, you'll notice that there's going to be some resistance when you're turning the handlebars. And that's maybe not super critical, especially on road bikes, because you're not doing any of those crazy maneuvers anyways. But yeah, on a gravel bike, you sometimes end up doing a little bit more extreme movements with the handlebars. So you definitely don't want any resistance or any blockage, which would be the worst. So yeah, just push in a little bit of that brake hose into the handlebar and then start taking your measurements from there. Now, I'm going to cut the brake hose to length. Make sure this is the brake hose and not the shift cable. Push it in. I'd rather cut it a little bit too long than too short, of course. There we go. And oil goes all over the place because in these brand new group sets, actually there is a lot of oil already in the whole system, so that hopefully you won't have to bleed it after the first setup if you don't lose too much oil along the way. So let's see how this is going to work out for us. I'm going to push the pin in here by hand as far as it goes, and then I'm going to compress it into the tool. First I'm going to open up the tool. Now I grab it with this, and I'll show you in a second. Now we're pushing in that pin into the brake hose. All the way like that. And now it is ready to be inserted into the shifter. Normally with those group sets or with hydraulic hoses, you would have to put on something called an olive onto the hose as well. But with new group sets, this is actually already pre-installed in the shifter. So you basically just have to push in the hose and then tighten up this little nut here. I mean, it says 5 to 6 Newton meters. It is metal on plastic, so watch out to not go too hard. As you see, I don't have an adapter to measure torque here, but I've done a lot of them already, so I hope that I'll be able to just do it by hand. That should be good. All right, next one. And as I said, the system has already been filled with oil, like all the components had oil in them already. So now if I push this lever, hopefully we'll feel some resistance and we'll not be able to just push it through, which would mean that we don't have to bleed it, but let's see. Oh, there you go. It is actually very, very tight. Nice. So no bleeding needed on this one, which is fantastic. So now, while we're on the shifter, we're also going to insert the shift cable also into the shift outer housing, and then hope that it's just easily going to pop out at the end of the bike. All right, so we have the shift cable. For this, we have to peel back this rubber hood a little bit further. So here we have the opening for the shift cable, and we're just going to feed that cable all the way through here. Feed it down to the bottom here. There we go. So that's done on this side. Now on the other side we have this situation here. So we open up that flap, then we take our gear shift cable, we insert it up here. It's not so easy because it's quite a stiff outer housing. And then we feed the end of the shift cable into the opening of the housing. There we go. So we just feed it all the way through, hoping that it's just going to pop out on the other side of the bike. There we go. Now it's here. So just to prove it to you, I'm just gonna pull at the end now. There we go. Make sure to have no bend in it. Everything's nice and straight here now. Pull it through. There we go. And then we can close this flap. All right, and peel back the rubber hoods. All right, and that's pretty much it. So now just do quickly the very same thing for the brake hose on the other side. Let's go. And I'm now quickly gonna open this up all the way to show you this olive that I was talking about. Yep. There you go. This is how this olive looks. Wouldn't eat it, but yeah, that's the part that I was talking about on the other shifter. So now that we took it out, the nut needs to go on here, and then the olive on top, and then everything together goes into the shifter. Make sure that the brake hose is pushed all the way in, which is always a little bit difficult when you're having your fingers full of oil, but you already feel some resistance now. So do another quarter turn. Okay. And now same thing here as well. If we now didn't lose too much oil along the way and we now push it down, there we go. So yeah, there's nice resistance, which means we won't have to bleed this system today, which is great, good time saver. So before we move to the rear derailleur, I quickly want to install the bottom bracket. And again, here we have a Big One bottom bracket. Well, I mean, it is a Big One, but it's from a company called Big One. This one is a little bit different. It is from their budget line. Still a high performance bottom bracket, of course. And it is called the DC Tech bottom bracket. It is a T47 with steel bearings. And what I like here a lot is that this inner sleeve is out of metal. So whenever you have brake hoses or anything, or especially now brake hoses and a shifting hose running underneath the bottom bracket, you won't have issues of them pressing against it and kind of like popping out any plastic sleeve that you have, or if you don't have a sleeve, them rubbing against your crank spindle, which is, I guess, something that you absolutely want to avoid. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how this one's going to perform, especially in a gravel kind of setup. So let's install it. So as always, first of all, we're gonna grease the threads nicely up. Good amount of grease here. Nice. All the way almost by hand. Now let's get the torque wrench. Okay. Other side. Now it's going nice and smoothly. Tighten by hand again as far as you can. Okay, looking good. And for the crankset, like on the Strada, I'm going to be installing this Elili X310 crankset. So ultralight with a nice wolf tooth. What size is this? This is a 48 tooth 1x chainring. So nice and light setup. So let's pop that in. Of course, as always, gonna grease everything nicely up here on the spindle. Okay, that's maybe a bit much, but as I said, better too much than too little. All right, so let's add one small spacer here. Let's move this one up. $40 Nm, so pretty much really tight. And of course, this is now a steel bearing in that bottom bracket, so I don't assume that it's going to be spinning so freely like the titanium, like the ceramic one, but still really nice and feels buttery smooth. Okay, I'd say it's time for the rear derailleur. So for the rear derailleur, we have this beautiful GRX 810. So yeah, let's mount it. As always, first, Let's grease up the bolt. I think that's looking quite good. Beautiful. All right, so now I'm actually wondering, is this maybe gonna be enough of that outer cable? There we go, like that. So I'll definitely give it a try first. Yeah, I'm curious to see how this is gonna index, because as I said, it's been a while since I installed the mechanical group set. All right, let's see if anything shifts here. Looking good so far. Almost putting in the wheels. Just quickly gonna add the saddle and seat post. So we're gonna do a little bike fit once it's on the floor anyways, but just that it looks like a proper bike. Okay, let me get the wheels. Rear first. Okay, looking quite fresh already, huh? What do you think? Time to get the chain on. Should be quite an easy task with a 1x setup, I'd hope. Still a bit waxy, the chain, because it's just fresh off the bath, so there's some wax in between the chain links. You still want a little bit of stretch even in the smallest string, so I would say something like this. So I would cut it here. So it's important to push a big link out, because the little quick link tool is also replacing a big link. All right, now we take the two quick links. They also have a direction. You see there's a little bit of an arrow. There's an arrow, not a little bit. There is an arrow on them showing you in which direction they're supposed to be moving when you're pedaling. So when I'm pedaling, chain is moving this way, so the arrow needs to be pointing this way. So inserting this one here and this one over here. It's sometimes a little bit tricky when you have a freshly waxed chain, because you need to make it some space. Maybe scrap off a little bit of the wax from the outside. There you go. And then you have this little chain link tool. So you put those two together, then you interlink them. There you go. And now you pull them apart and lock them in with this tool. There we go. Now it's time for some indexing. So it's been a while since I last indexed a mechanical group set. So let's see if it can go all the way in. Okay, I can definitely get onto the biggest chainring, which is nice. One down, works. One down. Oh, something odd's happening here. Let's go all the way down. And I see that all the way down, it is not even going to the smallest sprocket. It is trying to, which means that there is a little bit too much tension, even though, oh no, level screws need to be adjusted. So let me get on the other side real quick. This one out. Still doesn't want to jump to the smallest chainring. Yeah, I think we need to give a little bit of slack. Wait, maybe with this. Maybe that's gonna be enough. Push it down. Yes, that looks good. And let's shift up now. One up, 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 and one up. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I would say good enough for first test drive. Let me center the brakes now. So I got so used to centering the brakes now by hand that I'm not even using the tool anymore. There you go, no chain rub, no brake rub. Let me tighten these bolts. There you go, let's do the same thing in the front. Just wanted to say, when you do this, watch out to not get your fingers caught in the spokes, or even worse, in the brake disc. Nice and quiet. All right, almost done. I'm very excited already, but still need to add the bottle cages, of course, because also while graveling, you might want to drink something along the way from time to time. Nice, I think these look great, and this nice matte color fits the frame. What do you think? All right, now my absolute favorite part, as you know from my other build videos, wrapping the bar tape. So this is gonna be a time lapse because I'm gonna cheat a lot watching other YouTube videos. So now let me clean this up a bit and we'll put it on the scale. Just one additional fact that might be a given, but of course I'm going to be tightening all those screws, like up in the front, in the handlebars, of course, the seat post and so on and so forth, everything to torque specification, while doing a little bit of a bike fit. So yeah, if you're following and doing this, building your bike, then yeah, also don't forget tightening all the bolts to torque specification, so to be safe out on the road. Okay, let's continue. Let's put the scale on, 0, and let's see. 8.5 kilograms. I think that's pretty good for a gravel bike, no? Wouldn't you say? Because I mean, first of all, we got a GRX group set, mechanical ones, the 810. We got quite some chunky carbon wheels. We got 45mm tires. I'm running them actually tubeless because as I'm giving gravel a try, again, I want to give it a try with all the rules and all the features that belong to it. And I've been told that tubeless is kind of a must for gravel because you want to ride at those low pressures, and that makes you feel more secure, especially when you're going over sand and stuff. So there's quite a bit of sealant that I put in there today. And yeah, I mean, quite the heavy handlebar, all the screws and all the mounts. I think for that setup, for a gravel frame, without any weight optimization so far, I mean, like, you can't say any, because I mean, we got some fancy stuff like carbon crankset and things, and lightweight disc brakes, super lightweight bottle cages, but still, I love it. Like, I'm very excited to take this bike out tomorrow for a first test drive. So yeah, I'm very, very hyped that I now have a Bossi for the gravel and I have a Bossi for the road. I think it's a privilege to have that set up. So thanks a lot, Bossi, and all the supporters of this channel for making this happen. So there is, of course, going to be a review coming of the frame. There's a review going to come of the wheels, because I also haven't tested those wheels yet. Also, I guess a review of riding one bike, because that's something new for me as well. And of the mechanical GRX, because I think I haven't ridden a GRX yet. So yeah, lots of things to give feedback on. So if this is something that you might be interested in, consider subscribing so that you don't miss out on all those upcoming episodes. And if you like this episode, of course, don't forget to hit that like button. It's going to help me out a lot. And with that, I'll say, as always, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.